ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
G'day ABC News Daily listeners. I'm Matt Bevan and I've got a new series that I'm very excited about. In America's last election, I'm looking back at the denial of the 2020 election result and what it tells us about the plan this year.
This is vote switching in the computer.
Frankly, we did win this election.
The president responds, but wouldn't it almost be cool to have that power?
If You're Listening presents America's last election. You can find it on ABC Listen.
Donald Trump says he's the opposite of a Nazi, and it's Kamala Harris who's a fascist, not him. But what do his own words and actions show us? Today, Jenniffer Mercieca, a historian on political rhetoric from Texas A&M University, on how Trump's language can be likened to Hitler's and how he uses it to win over his supporters. I'm Sam Hawley on Gadigal Land in Sydney. This is ABC News Daily. Jennifer, it's just a week until the US election, and let's face it, it's becoming pretty nasty. We saw that at a Trump rally at Madison Square Garden in New York City this week, where there was a string of deeply racist and inflammatory speeches.
She is the devil, whoever screamed that out. She is the Antichrist.
And these Latinos, they love making babies too, just know that. There's no pulling out.
America is for Americans and Americans only.
She's a fake, a fraud, she's a pretender. Her and her pimp handlers will destroy our country.
So they were saying things about Puerto Ricans, making lewd jokes about them.
Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
Lots of derogatory comments about Kamala Harris. And it was essentially one extended fear appeal, meaning that every speaker who got up said something that was meant to terrify the audience. And what I've really begun to realize is that that's the campaign plan, is to essentially terrorize voters into supporting Trump so that they are so afraid for their safety, for their children's safety, that they will willingly give up their power to this, sort of strongman leader who promises to protect them.
I will rescue every city and town that has been invaded and conquered, and we will put these vicious and bloodthirsty criminals in jail. We're going to kick them the hell out of our country as fast as possible.
All right, so Jennifer, we know that race has been playing a big role in this campaign, as well, of course, as gender. But I really want to focus with you now on the term fascist, because that is the label Donald Trump has now gained. Just tell me first how that's gained traction.
Well, for the folks who follow sort of traditional news media, they would have heard that Trump's former chief of staff, that his generals, and that other members of his former cabinet have done interviews and have called him a fascist, said that when they worked with him during his first term, that Trump wanted repeatedly to do things that were illegal, that violated democratic norms, that violated the Constitution, that would harm people. He wanted to go after enemies. He wanted to keep power. He wanted to use the military against the public. And so people have been trying to make the case that Donald Trump is a fascist, has always been one. And if you didn't know that already, it's because, we sort of prevented him from acting on it.
Yeah, so his former chief of staff, John Kelly, labelled Trump a fascist, going on the record after many years. And that really, I guess, got people talking. And Kamala Harris was asked at a CNN town hall event if she agreed with the description.
Yes, absolutely.
You yourself have not used that word to describe him. Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. And I also believe that the people who know him best on this subject should be trusted.
And, according to historians, political scientists, people like me who study authoritarianism and fascism, he ticks all the boxes, right? And so fascism is a very violent political theory. They don't believe in democracy, very heteronormative and aggressive, and very willing to break the rule of law in order to pass whatever policies they want and to punish people that they deem as outsiders. So Mussolini is the one who created fascism as a political theory. Hitler was probably an imitator of Mussolini, and though he called his program Nazism, you could also call it fascism. Franco in Spain and all of them are fundamentally unaccountable leaders. They're what we can think of as cognitively irresponsible, meaning they would like it if we would just accept because I said so as the answer to, anything. Yes. We should do this because I said so.
It doesn't sound like a group of men that sit well in an American democracy.
No, it's not a part of the democratic tradition in America.
No. All right, well, let's then, Jennifer, look at how fascists gain power and support and the tactics that they use. One is to gain a deep loyalty among supporters. So how does Trump do that?
So his whole campaign in 2024 has been built around this question, this issue. He started off saying that he was going to be his supporters' revenge, their retribution. And he says, in reality, it's not me they're after, it's you.
And in the end, they're not after me, they're after you. And I just happen to be standing in their way. It's my honor to do so.
Right. And so he sort of says this over and over and over again about how he sacrifices for them. The court cases, the assassination attempts, these kinds of things are folded into this narrative of I'm sacrificing for you. And so you owe me money, right? You need to support my campaign. You owe me your vote. And so, the fear appeals, the sacrifice narrative, and the requests for loyalty, and also the demonstrations of what happens to people when they're disloyal to Trump, right? So they get pushed aside, they get pushed out, they get threatened, makes people want to, obey. When scholars, again, historians of authoritarian regimes talk about this, they call it long knifing, right? Which is when Hitler got rid of his generals that he thought were disloyal to him. It's called the Night of the Long Knives. It's a way of understanding that when an autocrat feels threatened or that he feels that people are disloyal, they literally will put you to death. But they also might symbolically put you to death, right? Put you out of power. And so, he's really good at keeping his base very loyal to them. He praises them. He tells them how much he loves them. They're the real Americans, the good Americans. Everyone else is out to get them. And Trump is the only one who sees them. And he's the only one who will save them.
So sparking fear and then promising protection of some sort.
That's exactly right.
Incredible. All right. And we know, of course, for someone like Hitler, repetition was key, to keep repeating the same idea over and over and over again. Does Trump do that?
Yeah, Trump's absolutely doing that. Every speech is essentially the same. There's a recipe that he follows. He repeats his talking points 2 or 3 times in a row to make sure that people get the framing the way that he wants. Like Hitler, he uses repetition very successfully. And frankly, autocrats since Hitler have followed Mein Kampf as a propaganda manual. He includes a whole list of things, including repetition, for what to do and how to talk to people. Hitler was a propagandist during World War I, and he learned how to effectively manipulate people, exploiting their vulnerabilities. And he wrote it all down in Mein Kampf. And of course, everyone follows that playbook.
And then there's a feeling, of course, of being part of a movement. In this case, make America great again. That's the movement. That's the sense of belonging, I guess. Is that another tactic if you like.
Absolutely. And it helps people to believe that it's righteous, that it has power and that it's destined to win. And so then, of course, that helps him later when he wants to deny the results of the election. But it also gives people, this sort of feeling of pride, hearing that they're part of this strong movement that's destined to win, that they're the real Americans, the good Americans. It's very attractive.
For the past 9 years, we have been fighting against the most sinister and corrupt forces on earth. With your vote in this election, you can show them once and for all that this nation does not belong to them. This nation belongs to you. It belongs to you.
Conspiracy, I think, is also very important to Trump's success. Creating hate objects. So whether that's immigrants or migrants, or whether that's transgender people, or Democrats in general, they're all to be hated. They are, in fact, invaders and enemies, and they're already here and they're out to get you.
The United States is now an occupied country, but it will soon be an occupied country no longer. Not going to be happening. Not going to be happening.
All right, well, Jennifer, let's turn to the potential consequences of labelling Trump a fascist. Trump and his supporters say it's irresponsible to use labels like this, like fascist, because it's the sort of language that leads to things like assassination attempts.
Well, it's an accurate label. It's historically and based on political science and political theory. Yeah. It's an accurate label. He, of course, does not shy away from labeling his opponents with derogatory terms. So, it might be the case that a person doesn't like an accurate label. They don't find that it's flattering. Yeah. So Trump would like to be branded differently.
He's Hitler. And then they say, he's a Nazi. I'm not a Nazi. I'm the opposite of a Nazi. I don't know.
He would like to be known as a truth teller, I think.
Well, his supporters say it's Trump derangement syndrome, that it's sort of this irrational hate of him and, people can't look beyond it to see that his approach to governing could have some real positives.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me to think about how personality cults work because they don't see with their own eyes and they don't hear with their own ears. They hear what the authoritarian or the fascist leader wants them to hear, and they see what they want them to see. Right. And so Trump's followers, they don't look at Trump and see an old man who's wearing orange and brown face makeup and has, a kind of cotton candy confection of hair-like stuff upon his head. They look at him and they see this young, tanned, strong, virile, masculine father figure. Yes. And other people don't see him that way, right? And so it's amazing how your mind can trick you or can allow you to see things in certain ways, right? The sort of rose-colored glasses. And Trump's followers are that way. It's fascinating.
Sure is. All right. Well, the big question, I suppose, Jennifer, is that while Trump says these extreme things, like he'll send in the military to target his enemies within the United States, will he actually do it if he's elected? Will he actually govern like a fascist, or is it all just talk to win an election?
I suspect that he will, and that's not a very pleasant thought. He wants revenge. Donald Trump feels as though he has been attacked. He hates the American public for not voting him into office. He refuses to accept that he lost the election, which he lost by 7 million votes. He has narcissistic injury, right? And so he wants to act out and get revenge. He has been told by the Supreme Court that he has unlimited power to do so. So if he can get his loyalists into power, then he should be able to live out his darkest fantasies of revenge.
Jenniffer Mercieca is a political language expert from the Texas A&M University. This episode was produced by Sydney Peed and Cara Jensen McKinnon. Audio production by Anna John. Our supervising producer is David Cody. I'm Sam Hawley. Thanks for listening.